Greetings, programs. I'm your host, Doc Ito, and we are gathered here today to witness episode 23 of the Civ Battle Royale X Season 3, Blood-Stained Sands and Shanty-Bound Seas. Yo-ho-ho and, well, it's bourbon in my glass at the moment, but depending on how long it takes to record this, rum is not out of the question. But enough about my liver's problems. Wars are aplenty upon the high seas and throughout the vast plains, as opposing ideals and sheer tomfoolery repeat history as we've always known. Fighting war's good. Hello all, and welcome to yet another riveting episode of Seabricks Season 3. I'm It's Truck Month, or You Yampa on Reddit, former resident shitposter and the guy who kept reminding you of the Neutral's existence last season. Today sees episode 23 of this season, so let's move on to the never-ending grinds and oh-so-often disappointing AI plays. Berea's maps never fail to disappoint in terms of quality and accuracy, and with the destruction of rumps and the cleaning of borders, the maps simply look better than ever. What will it take for Americans to be happy? Not expanding to another continent, it seems, as Orange Chrissy's weekly comic shows. Will America see happiness in this episode, if ever? Who knows? Tune in to find out. As always, a thank you to our Ko-Fi supporters who keep this show running. Remember that donating just a bit can get you some cool perks, such as early releases, director's cuts, and more. Give more money, please. Nothing special about Uganda's change in the rankings. Just wanted to share JDT's take on Africa's resident rump, since this shit had me rolling for 5 minutes at the very least. Without further ado, let's get to your regularly scheduled programming. We begin with Chile besieging Kokang's Antarctic holdings, with Tar Shwe Tan brought down to the yellow. The city will certainly be Chilean within the next turn or two, with Tar Shan very likely following. Over in Central Asia, it's a rump-eat-rump world out there as Tamiris joins in on the Afghan crusade to put the Khazarians out of their misery. Central Asia's powerhouse will certainly kill off this puny city sometime this season. I can feel it. The war for Southern Europe begins as the Normans declare war on Yugoslavia. The Normans indisputably hold the advantage on the high seas, which puts Titograd at a high risk of capture, though their weak land military ensures a meat grinder on the dry fronts. Remember when we all decided Timur was the worst civ going into this season? Good times. Good times. Now here they are, holding a strong presence in the Pacific region and even grabbing an ideology, nationalism. Well, when your country is proving everyone wrong and rocking destroyers in a world of frigates and galleons, I'd say you deserve to be proud of your underdog story. America and the Cree make peace, leaving Philly in the hands of a brighter shade of blue. While they may be stuck to the eastern seaboard, they can stick to what FDR's been doing best this season, bullying Greenland. Yemen grabs the Spanish great artist Francisco de Zurabán, a man who, in another world apart from this cylinder, was known for his Christian artworks. But enough about great person lore. Yemen's core is looking fairly sparse at the moment, making Mbarara a vulnerable target for a certain funny purple civ. That, or yet another meat grinder like all those episodes ago. Looks like there's one place the Norman land forces could make gains, the Sahara. Pristina and Split are far separated from the Yugoslavian core and bear few troops. Seems like easy pickings for the Normans. Seems like the Arapaho are suffering from happiness problems, as barbarian riflemen begin to engage in tomfoolery in the American South. Seems like the citizens yearn for the battlefield, so let's hope the Arapaho will actually do something soon instead of being some void of boredom in America's heartland. Michael decides that even though the Anglo-Dutch are landing on the Isles as he speaks, it'd be a marvelous idea to have another go-round with Castile. Granted, since the Anglo-Dutch have practically no navy at this time, it may not be the worst idea. The Maori, in a vain attempt at a W, target Yonglei's Hawaiian colony, though given the Ming have more naval units than the Maori in this shot, survey says the Maori are going to have to wait a bit more for a W. A new era of national pride is sweeping the globe, as the Mojave also adopt nationalism. Given their destruction of Central America and a technical win against the Cree, I'd say they've earned this as well. Anyone else feeling some patriotic urges? Yemen also develops nationalism, which makes sense given their, Alright, come back to me in like 5 minutes while I think of something cool Yemen has done recently. In the meantime, check out how their core is still pretty damn barren, given their forces are moving more toward Afghan shores. Hopefully you didn't forget that America's at war with Mali, because Sundiata sure did. American naval units begin besieging the former Greenlandic city, and with more on the way, FDR could soon have his Isles retreat once again. All the while, the going's slow against Greenland up north, but it sure is going. Things don't look too hot for the Slavs, as you have to remember. They're at war with Brandenburg too. Given a thinning carpet on Tito's side of the coin, this could get very bad for the gray blob of Southeast Europe. Down south, both Bari and Titograd take minor amounts of damage. Titograd's in a much worse position, however, given their defense is nothing but a blip in a sea of very light blue. All the while, the land forces of both sides barely make progress, thanks to small numbers and small land to fight on. This war's almost purely going to be won by sails and anchors. It isn't all damp or torrential in this conflict, however, as the Normans have made great progress in the Sahara, taking Pristina and Split down to the Yellow. I give the cities like 3 turns at max before they're Norman. Seems like nationalism isn't the only trend going global, as evicting nations from the barren wastelands of Antarctica, this time with the Wiradjuri declaring war on Yemen, targeting their icy colony of Mocha. Perhaps Windradine just needs his coffee fix. Zulu also hops on the anti-Antarctic colonization coalition against Yemen, though given there's no fleet even near the colony of Mukalla, and given Yemen's Indian Ocean holdings, perhaps this war could be something even bigger. The Turks hire one of their own as a great engineer. Some more great lore: he was the Ottoman architect behind the Great Blue Mosque in Istanbul, not to be confused with the Hagia Sophia, though they do stand adjacent to each other, however. Nice to see canon recruitments in this Royale. As practically everyone and their mother would have guessed, Tarshwetan falls and burns at the hands of the Chileans, with the neighboring and more easily pronounceable city of Tarshan also looking quite ripe for Chilean aggression. I really want to know if Tupac actually realizes they're at war with La Plata. Does he send away every advisor trying to tell him about the conflict? Does he know South Salvador has fallen and Machu will soon follow? Hell, does the friggin' military, other than that one cannon, know that a war is occurring on this end of the empire? Either way, this has been a great turn of events for Jose, who basically was given 2 free cities from a gracious Incan empire. Given the terrain and concentration of units, it seems their gratuity and perceived ignorance ends there. The Permians are hungry for another expansion into Europe, and this time they go for easier prey, Vladimir. With open terrain and a pretty great stat advantage, Azuke will absolutely find spoils in this conflict. Bengal also joined in on what seems to be a growing coalition against the Yemenis, and a trio of ships begin to siege a small town just off the coast of Madagascar. With how much damage the 2 galleons have done, and a frigate in the bullpen, it's very possible Bengal can snag a brand new island retreat. Back to the Greenland America front, the navies on both ends are looking quite thin, Greenland more so. And with American land forces nearing Goldhaven and Egerisminde, Greenland is once again on the back foot. Also another episode of great lore, Angelo Imo was a Venetian admiral who was the last to lead the Venetian navy into battle, introduced reforms to the British Royal Navy, and bullied the Kingdom of Tunis. If only he could work that magic with Greenland's fleet right now. The Indian Ocean is alive with the sounds of cannon fire and sea shanties as Yemen and Pandya put up their dukes on the high seas. Yemen boasts quite the tech advantage and an equal game in numbers. I don't believe it's enough for Yemen to actually set up a colony in India, but who knows? Olive Yang breaks the trend of rising nationalism, opting to go communist instead. Perhaps the nationalization of the opioid industry could make for a better high. Other than that, not much to comment on. Kokang has quite a decent carpet, though they're lucky the geography provides such a good defense. On to more conflict. The Normans indeed take split as expected, though while progress on Pristina has been slow, its fall also seems inevitable. Open terrain and virtually no defense make cities like this prime pickings. Up north, the situation has changed greatly. While the Normans have Titograd surrounded and continue damaging the city, all the while Yugoslavia now has land units threatening the Norman capital. Seems like the momentum may be shifting back into Tito's favor. The Mojave build the Sagrada Familia, an industrial-era wonder that starts a golden age and increases GP generation in the city it's built in by 50%. I swear, this wonder is built in Civ 5 way too fast. If only the production needed reflected how long Spain's taking to build this in real life. Wonders aren't the only thing the Mojave have been busy with. They have an air force now. This could be a decisive advantage for the Mojave if they ever want another stab at the Cree, or possibly securing the rest of the Southwest from the Arapaho. A look at both the cores of Indonesia and Timor-Leste shows quite a staunch technological divide. While Indonesia sticks with musketmen and frigates, Timor is rocking destroyers and riflemen. If Indonesia is wanting to stay competitive, they need to close that tech gap, and maybe feast on Bengal while they're at it. We get a shot of the Afghani Corps, showing how their carpet is spread across their vast empire. Do note the two random war declarations on them by Lithuania and Indonesia. Marks the coming of a coalition, perhaps? Yeah, so Mori fans can rest a bit easy as the Gokturks aren't putting in any sort of effort into their assault. Hell, there hasn't even been any sort of damage to Mori cities. Mori's time will come eventually, just not this episode. Pandya utilizes the talent of one Michel de Ruyter in order to help rout their more advanced foes in Yemen. Great lore time. In our time, Michel was a skilled admiral for the Dutch Navy, who was most famous for his achievements during the Anglo-Dutch Wars. His skills will be needed here, as the Pandyan fleet is both dwindling and technologically behind. We move over to our resident science turtle of the cylinder, the Kayapo, which shows off a solid core consisting of Gatling guns and ironclad ships. While it may not be as impressive as Timor's destroyers or the Mojave's air force, it still is a tier above what anyone else on their continent has. Now, if only the Kayapo would actually wake up and utilize that tech difference. A shot of the Turkish-Afghan border may signal uneasiness for the Afghans. With a coalition brewing and forces stretched thin across their empire, a hungry Turkish army could ride into Persia almost unopposed for the initial turns of the war. As it stands, though, all is quiet, except up north, where the Afghans are still trying to put Khazaria out of their misery. While Bengal may have been unable to take Jibla, the Zulu have come to take the reins, bringing the city down to the yellow. With no reinforcements in sight, Yemen is all but certain to lose yet another colony. How does Hans do it? What is the process behind such masterful diplomacy? After yet another grindfest with America, he pieces out, giving yet another mainland city to the Americans, this time Godhavn. At this rate, I swear, Hans is going to give away the entirety of his empire to the US. Bengal has joined in on the Afghan coalition and declared war, marking the war between the two Indian powerhouses. Well, on paper, at least. The reality is that neither side has much of an army on the front lines, so don't expect this war to heat up for a bit, if ever. Glorious Best Korea decides to go to war with the Mori yet again, despite the last war going nowhere with a full navy, and Korea not even having rebuilt said navy. Honestly, this feels like yet another waste of resource. User has been removed for hostile rhetoric towards our great leader. The Mori shall burn. Long live our glorious leader, Kim Il-sung. The Great Mediterranean War has seen another big shift across all fronts. The Normans have brought both Pristina and Titograd down to the red, and the Yugoslav assault on Salerno has stalled. That said, Tito's priorities may have shifted, seemingly targeting Melfi. But wait, what's that notification in the top right corner? Despite the majority of Perm's forces on the Vladimir front, Aziz still decides to join the Afghan coalition. That said, it may have been a poor decision, given Durrani has a sizable army on their northern borders. Time will judge Aziz's decision. All the while, Khazaria still survives, though the open borders may have doomed the three-tile rump. Jibla falls handily to the Zulu, with not a single Yemeni ship in sight to even attempt to contest it. Up north, Zulu's navy is getting bold, attempting to take the former Ugandan city of Mbarara. Hopefully we don't end up with the flip-fest shitshow of days past. Time for everyone's favorite subject, politics. No time for meta-humor, though. Let's just look at how everyone's governing, which is basically everyone under the military's iron fist. Props to Mali and Botswana for sticking out, I guess. Back to the fun stuff, Kokang joins in against Afghanistan, though it'll take some time for their military to be in shape to even think of doing damage, especially given the terrain of the region. Down south, the Bengalis are starting to make big moves, and actually have a military on the front lines. Can't really say the same for their opponent here. RDLP is gracious to have been given the city of Machu with little resistance from Tupac. As I said before, though, that may be the limit of his generosity. The unit density, tech advantage, and geography will put an end to Jose's little city shopping spree. Perm goes all in on their campaign against Vladimir, piling units upon Adana and Sarkel, the lack of reinforcements on the latter practically dooming the city, though Sarkel may as well be doomed, given the tech and quantity disparity. This all-in nature on this front could backfire if they don't hold the back line against Afghanistan, but who knows what Aziz is cooking. Titograd falls to the Normans, while Melfi falls to the Yellow as Yugoslavia puts up the pressure on that front. All the while, the attack on Salerno has all but failed, with reinforcements dwindling and little progress to make up for it. Up north, Brandenburg is not pulling their weight, making zero progress against Zagreb. All is basically quiet on the English Channel, as the destruction of the Anglo-Dutch Navy has ground their war to a halt, aside from the occasional land unit dumb enough to land on Rotterdam. Michael's priorities seem to have shifted to Castile, positioning a good chunk of his military at Oviedo and sending some galleons down towards Iberia. Down south, things are about equally as slow, with a couple Malian ships damaging Castilian ones and vice versa. Meanwhile, Mali has settled the city of Kangare atop the ruins of Burgos, as a post-war fuck you to FDR. Tamantarkhan is in the red, and is surrounded by 2 Jezelchis and a cannon for insurance. Khazaria's only unit is a caravel in the red. Not much else to say here, fellas. Prime your Fs. Yugoslavia's desert shenanigans have come to an end, as Pristina falls to the Normans, as expected. Up north, not much progress has been made against Melfi. Check back in about 5 slides or something. Huh. Somehow Sarkel looks quicker to fall than Adana, despite the latter having practically zero reinforcements. Either way, Perm is going all in on this front, but the southern flank is also holding strong. Yes, I see the city in the black below, as do you. You know it's time. Afghanistan takes Aral from the Permians and finally captures Tamantarkhan, the last Khazarian city, eliminating them from the game. I'll be honest, I kind of forgot these guys were in the game. But can you blame me? Their performance was pretty unremarkable, settling a decent empire around the Caspian, being stabbed in the back by Vladimir during a war with the Massagetæ, getting sent to the rump zone by the Permians, and then being eaten away slowly by the powers of the region that be. If there's someone I won't remember on the inevitable CBRX3 Sporkle quiz, it'll be your empire, Bulan. F. Remember what I said back on slide 36? Well, it's happening. Suharto finally does what us Indonesia fans have wanted for Lord knows how long now. He's declared war on Bengal. Bengal may have some higher tech land units, but the sea is king here, and does Indonesia hold quite the numbers advantage there? Chittagong and Midnapore are the obvious targets, though Bengal could lose Patna and maybe even more. The last vestiges of the Khazarian fleet linger under the helm of Galvarino Riveros Cardenas, giving orders over the bona fide flotsam that is almost certainly the Khazars' last ship. Another bit of great lore: Cardenas was a Chilean naval officer and commander of the Chilean squadron during the War of the Pacific against Peru and Bolivia. Here, though, he remains an admiral with no fleet to command, no country to fight for, no national pride to revel in. He shall float on the Black Sea till time's end, or at the hands of another ship's cannon. Good news for the Normans. The Yugoslav assault on Salerno is still failing. Bad news. Melfi is now at half health. While the Slavs could take the city in time thanks to the knights stationed in northern Greece, the Norman navy should be able to flip the city back. The Zulu-Yemen war is heating up on the high seas, as not only have the Yemenis beefed up their carpet on their shores, but have also sent a contingent down south to attack the Zulu island city of Nodwengu. With only a couple galleasses to defend, Sechwile could definitely lose this city, though a mishmash of international ships could make this annoying for Yemen. Cambodia embroiled in their war with Kokang. All the while, Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck stands on the rear guard, hoping any Indonesian ships don't try to attack their landlocked capital. Paul was a general for Imperial Germany during World War I, known for conducting raids into British East Africa. Unfortunately for him, it looks like it's all a defensive game here, to save Cambodia from their opioid overlords. Hans decides that, while the last war was bad, it was really just a loss due to his poor diplomacy. Surely it wouldn't happen again, right? With this attitude, he orders the Navy to set sail eastward. They're going to take on the Irish, and they're not giving away any cities this time. The navy of our glorious Korea has begun the siege of the Mori capital. The Mori navy is pitiful and non-existent, absolutely inferior to our beautiful ships. The Mori pigs shall burn. Korea shall rule the waves. Long live glorious Korea. Mocha falls to the Wiradjuri, much to the surprise of no one, and proceeds to burn as Windradine seeks only the purest white wasteland for Antarctica. The city shall return to the ice once more, in due time. Sarkel flips twice, returning to the hands of Vladimir for the time being, though certainly doomed to fall again. Down south, Adana falls to the yellow in its slow but inevitable assimilation into Permian hands. Lithuania is gracious enough to host battles in their lands, as they have open borders with both Perm and Vladimir. On the southern front, Perm is holding on fairly strong, taking the former Khazar city of Tamantarkhan and threatening to take back Aral. The Caspian fleet is also making things much harder for Afghanistan, whose forces are starting to dwindle. In the meantime, they settle their war with Tuva, which basically saw nothing happen. The Bengal-Indonesia War has gone into full swing, as both Midnapore and Yogyakarta begin taking small damage, while the navies of both empires duke it out. That said, Bengal's gonna need to act quickly to limit the damage or get a small win, as Indonesia's reserve fleet far outclasses Bengal's, and a war of attrition could turn real bad for the Tigers. Not a fan of naval wars? Don't worry, landlubbers, because the Han have got your back. Wu declares war on the Gokturks, though initially this could be a major mishap, as the Gokturks' forces look much more prominent on this front. Could Wu be taking a bigger bite than he can chew? Greenland gets to work fast, starting to damage Tralee with a single ship and a pikeman. Where the hell is the rest of your navy, Hans? Oh, there it is, up north, against one lone Irish galleon. Surely there is some grand scheme I'm missing here. The Kree decide to go for round 2 with the Gokturks, joining in on the Han War. This will largely go back to the Sea Dwellers' domain, given how it'll be fought over the Bering Sea, so hopefully the Kree can get their fleet out of British Columbia. Maury fans can breathe a sigh of relief, given they're no longer the biggest priority. A slide that shows nothing but Perm W's. Sarkel falls yet again to Perm, though this time it's looking far more safe from flipping. Adana is down to the red, and is sure to fall within the next turn or two. On the Afghan front, Aral is retaken for the time being, while Tamantarkhan is securely in Perm hands. We now know what Azike was cooking. A damn fine good show, with no signs of slowing down. As predicted earlier, Mocha is razed to the ground, leaving the land to the ice and snow. Well, at least for now, as a lone Mojave settler veers from the east. Melfi finally falls to Yugoslavia, though with a dwindling land force and a still large Norman fleet, I doubt they can actually hold on to the city. Up north, Brandenburg still drags its feet on making progress against Zagreb. The tide shifts in the Melee War, as while the Bengal assault on Yogyakarta has stalled, Indonesia has brought Midnapore down to the yellow. The Bengal fleet still remains strong, so don't think they'll let the city go without a fight. Our glorious leader Kim Il-sung, in his everlasting mercy, has decided to spare the pitiful Mori. They are not worthy of death by our pure hands. Let the hordes of the north eliminate these swine. Long live the merciful Kim Il-sung, and long live glorious Korea. Not only has Pandya managed to fend off the Yemeni fleet, but such a feat has now inflated their ego, so much they decide to take on the big dog of India. The obvious target is Afghanistan's South India city of Charan, which is defended by a lone rifleman. Pandya taking it and unifying South India seems pretty likely. Tupac, continuing in the theme of distribution after graciously distributing the eastern half of his land empire to La Plata, opts to pursue communism and seize the means of sailing. In a Royale where you need to take cities, generosity is probably the last trait you need, Tupac. Melfi is recaptured by the Normans, with the Slavs having a lone galleon available to recapture it. Pair that with Brandenburg actually moving troops towards Zagreb, and this war has truly taken a turn for the worse for Tito. Tito's gonna need to peace out ASAP if he wants to have even a chance of remaining competitive. Perm captures Adana and looks to hold on to it permanently. Despite that, the Western Front is beginning to slow down, though Perm still holds the numbers advantage, and open borders can allow for flanking opportunities. AZK seems to have prioritized their war with Afghanistan more, as more and more troops pour to help push back the slightly different shade of brown menace, with Arl flipping back to Perm once again. So, you know how I said Pandya repelled the Yemeni fleet? Well, I more or less lied, as you see. Al-Salehi has merely shifted priorities. The full force of the Yemeni Navy now moves southward to target the Zulu, as they begin to damage Nodwengu. Zulu's outmatched in both tech and numbers, so this has the possibility of getting real ugly. Arl flips back to Afghanistan, but not for long, as a full assault from the Permians begins to bear down on the Afghani northern flank. The Afghans have a decently sized army to fight them off, but with 3 fronts open, will it be enough? Seems I may have spoken too soon as to Han's chances, as they hit the ground running by pushing units into Gokturk lands and damaging their former city of Guzang. If they keep this momentum going, it could be a pivotal win for the Han in securing dominance in Asia. Charan is completely surrounded by Pandyan units, who begin to chip away at the city's health. With Afghan reinforcements in short supply, the city will most certainly fall to the fish boys. Castile also joins in on the Afghan coalition. But you already know the drill, I don't need to explain this. Other than that, their war with Mali and Ireland has still been slow, Ireland sending a couple ships and Mali a couple units, only for both to be killed. Surely this war will amount to nothing. Well, good news for Bengal. They've managed to fend off the Indonesian fleets from the city for now, and are putting work into damaging Yogyakarta. Bad news? The Indonesians are focusing more on Chittagong and look poised to take it soon, and the Bengali fleet has been exhausted, while Suharto has a whole other fleet in the north, ready to move down for some action. The Kree managed to get a bit of damage into the former Duck Boys city of Kalugwis, but without any other support, especially of the naval variety, it won't amount to much. Despite this war, the Gokturks still carve out some time for the Mori, sending a couple of ships down to almost certainly get destroyed. Sarkel is firmly in Permian hands as they try to utilize Lithuania's open borders to flank Vladimir. That said, Perm's pivot towards the Afghan front has practically ground this war to a halt, but even if peace were made here, it'd still be a fruitful victory for Azuke. Wu manages to keep up the momentum as they continue to push troops further past the Gokturks' borders, though the siege of Guzang has crawled to a standstill. The Han backline is worryingly thin, though, meaning that Wu will need to utilize the front as much as he can, or else things could turn for the worst for China. Another shot at politics shows a bit more diversity in how the brutal empires of the cylinder rule over their subjects. Indonesia, Greenland, and the Inca give more power to the people as republics, while the Anglo-Dutch, Kayapo, and Ming prefer an older form of rule. Kievan Rus even more so, sticking with a tribal style of rule all the way to the 20th century. Talk about sticking to your roots. Seems Isabella has taken a page right out of Hans's book, as she gives away the city of Valladolid to the Malians in a peace deal. This masterful work of diplomacy has left Castile with only 2 cities, who I can really only see falling to Mali once they feel like finishing their leftovers. Also, Ireland's at war with Castile. Completely forgot about that. You know who else is at war with Ireland? The Greenlanders. Something Michael seems to have completely forgotten about. The Ice Walkers of Season 3 hope to avenge their nation's pride by taking Tralee off the Irish, which has fallen to the deep red and is lacking in reinforcements. Lord Nelson watches over the city of Rotterdam, guarding the Irish shores from any Anglo-Dutch scoundrel that could come to take the definitely Irish city that the Irish settled. What could be more important than defending the Irish homeland from the Orange Menace? Well, maybe defending them from the Ice Walkers from the west, but I guess word hasn't gotten to this side of the Isles yet. The penultimate shot shows La Plata's expanded core, as well as the new city of Salta, planted right in the center of it all, a tribute to their great expansion. Do they still have a snowman's chance in hell of winning this Royale? Absolutely. But it's still kind of nice to see the little guys win for once. Our final shot of today's episode is of our number one's mighty corps, as well as their unique unit, the Throat Singers. These great musician replacements have extra movement and sight, can enter territory of civs with a shared religion, and remove heresy when expended in a friendly city. Not much to provide on the battlefield other than some beats to conquer to. And with that, I say farewell, me hearties, from your humble narrator and I. We'll see you again next week. Same Seabricks time, same Seabricks channel. Until then, stay out of trouble, or at least don't leave any evidence behind.